Ever since we started grade school, we've all been told that we need a big, strong government to look after us. And that, sure, it may need fixing here and there, but generally today's government size is about right. We disagree. We think that government is a parasite, living off what you and I earn and using our money to do unpleasant things to us. From being a nation of self-reliant go-getters, America is fast becoming a country of government junkies. We think an alternative exists, one that puts you back in charge of your own life and destiny. We call it the freedom alternative.
Good evening. I'm Peter Verderosa.
And I'm Jim Davies.
And welcome again to The Freedom Alternative. This is the first edition of our second year of broadcasting. Watch us every week on this channel, on this day, at this time, for a view of what's going on around us that the government does not control. Sometimes we invite viewers to tell us of some activity of government which they don't think a free, unregulated market could deliver instead better and cheaper. There may be one or two, though so far there have been no takers. Call us on 1-438-5224 if you think you can name one. One that we can think of is killing people. Very frequently, governments set about the terrible task of systematically slaughtering human beings. If government were very small or non-existent, we doubt very much that that could happen. And that's one big advantage for the freedom alternative. To remind you, U.S. governments alone, in this century alone, have killed large numbers of Germans, Japanese, Germans again, North Koreans, Vietnamese, Panamanians, and now Iraqis. Not one of those it killed was credibly threatening Americans. And no, we have not forgotten Pearl Harbor, nor have we forgotten the U.S. naval blockade of Japan that provoked it, right on schedule. Three of the biggest government butchers of this century are Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin, and Adolf Hitler, who deliberately killed 6 million Jews. We have been taught to regard Hitler, especially, as a savage, a subhuman monster, a demon, the devil incarnate. We disagree. We think he was a politician very much like all those politicians that you know, in Town Hall, and in Hartford, and in Washington. In their essential nature, they are just as evil as he was. Today, Jim will introduce us to someone who met Hitler, and who will tell you the kind of man he found him to be. His name is Randall Johnson, an English gentleman whom Jim met while visiting this delightful part of the English countryside last week. We are proud now to present the man who met Hitler.
Well, Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for joining us in our program.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
That's very nice. Can I first of all ask you to tell us how old you are?
Well, regrettably, 81 and a half years.
That's not something to regret.
Well, no, I managed to get there.
That's a fine achievement. Now, that would mean that you started work sometime in the 1920s, I think.
At the end of the 20s,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did, when I left university,
okay.
and went straight into the continent, yes.
Okay. You say you went into the continent. What kind of work did you do?
Well, I went into the travel business with a very old established travel company called the Polytechnic Touring Association. It was a bit individual, because it was a family-run thing and very religious, though I'm not.
Okay, but its business was to conduct tours for tourists.
Tours, absolutely.
Throughout Europe,
yes, yes, absolutely.
And you got British people presumably going, and you...
Well, the whole of the British Isles, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes from the colonies, Canadians, and sometimes Americans.
And now, be careful now, America is not a colony of Great Britain.
No, colonies...
a lot of our viewers will relate to that.
Colonies, and sometimes
former
Americans.
colonies, right. That's good. And what countries did you go to?
All over Europe, but the usual touring countries, as far as the coaches were concerned, 5, as Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, and the Low Countries.
Belgium, Holland, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Could you speak some of these languages?
Yes, yes, German, French, Italian.
That's remarkable.
Well, it helped.
Yeah, I bet it did.
Yes.
And when you did also some planning, I think, of the tours ahead of
yes.
the actual
well,
expedition.
Yes, the system was that the actual tours were planned at home with advice from the continental representatives.
Yeah.
And then people like myself would go around for certain areas in certain countries and make arrangements with all the hotels.
Right.
And also check up on the travel arrangements. There were train and coach.
Right.
No plane, of
Right.
course.
Did you sometimes have to deal with the various government representatives to get permission to
Oh, yes.
to run these tours?
This later on, in the early, well, just about the end of the Weimar Republic.
That's
which
in
was
Germany, of
yes,
course,
was
yeah.
coming
Yeah.
along in '29. Well, then this new German Workers' Party was formed, and they'd gained by then, and were shortly going to become the Nazi Party. Now their people were very difficult to deal with, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of trouble in getting work permits for our resident English representatives
Some of
in
them
their
were resident.
country.
Okay,
Yes.
got you.
Well, resident for the period of 6 to 9 months
Yes,
of
yes.
the season. Yes.
You got a bit of bureaucracy there, did you?
Oh, not a bit, a whole ton of it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, you were telling me that on one occasion you had to deal with the German government like that, and you had a visit, was it 1934? You had to go to Berlin?
Yes.
What happened there?
Well, I was in Heidelberg at the time.
Nice city.
Oh, beautiful, yes. I'll tell you a bit more about that later.
Yeah.
And I was then called by head office in London and told to go to Berlin as the Minister of Propaganda, the German minister, that was
Right.
Dr. Goebbels.
Goebbels.
Yes. Wanted to talk to various members of the travel organisations. So up I went to Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I reported to the Ministry of Propaganda, and they said, oh yes, I knew about it, and asked me to come next day at 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock I was there and went through a whole phalanx of guards and things, and came to a little office in which Dr. Goebbels was sat, and a little man, immaculate little man, and he just chatted with me and said, well...
You shook the hand of Joseph
Oh
Goebbels?
yes, so he shook hands and said, well, he said Heil Hitler first.
And did you...
No.
No.
I didn't. He said Heil Hitler, I said good morning.
Good morning.
And then he shook hands, and then he said, I wanted to see you, particularly before we see the others. There are 5 of them, 4 or 5, no, 5 of them. And he said, but your company is bringing quite a lot of British people over to the fatherland, and we want to extend all the help and welcome we can. I want you to tell your people at home that.
He was very eager to sell Germany to
very
tourists then.
eager,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
eager. It was beginning to bring in foreign money.
Yeah, yeah.
So then we moved over into a little salon where the other members of the travel people were. I knew all of them.
Half a dozen people, something like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think there were 5.
Yeah.
Yes,
But-
5, 6 with myself.
But I'm fascinated that you actually met and talked to Joseph Goebbels. He is the father, is he not, of modern propaganda
Oh yes,
techniques?
yes, and what is more, some people anyway, and at that time will have noticed how he increased in stature as far as propaganda went. He really made it something.
Yeah. Film, radio.
Oh, film, radio, stunts, all sorts of gimmicks.
This is how the Hitler government persuaded people to go along with him, I presume. And he was
Well,
the
to a
king
certain extent, yes. It was part and parcel of the cult regime of Hitler,
Yeah,
because propaganda really sprang from him.
Right, right.
Yes, but he was terrific, Dr. Goebbels, no doubt about
And then
that.
he gave you say that you were moved into a little room with half a dozen
little
other
salon,
folk. And Did he
yes.
give a little speech at that point?
Yes, we had some coffee and that, and then he just said how much he appreciated what we were doing for the fatherland, and
Yeah.
bringing the outside world in to see what a wonderful government was being made by the present party.
Yeah, right.
We all said yes.
Yes, of course. What else? And he appeared to be a quite civilized person,
Oh, a very cultured man.
very cultured,
Very
easy
cultured
to
man.
understand.
Oh, yes, yes. There was nothing fanatical or that about him. He was talking as a good, honest business broker,
Right, right.
as far as he was concerned.
Now tell me, if somebody, as you were sitting there with your colleagues
Yeah.
and hearing this man, supposing somebody had whispered, he and his wife Magda are 11 years from now, they're going to poison their 5 children. What would you have said in reply?
Oh, complete rubbish.
Nonsense.
I couldn't accept that.
It didn't make sense.
No.
This person couldn't do that.
I was in a realistic world with people who, at that particular time, seemed to be bringing something to Germany that they needed.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's how it appeared to us.
Now, he was not the only person you spoke to in that room. So there were the half dozen of you in the room with Joseph Göbbels. Somebody came in the door. What happened?
Yes, somebody did come to the door. The door opened. There were very long, high doors, and one just opened, and in came a little figure in a little sort of brown uniform and walked over. Dr. Göbbels immediately sprang to attention.
Oh, yeah?
And said, "Heil Hitler." And I looked and I thought, it can't be. It just can't be. This little insignificant man, his head looked too big for his body.
Yeah.
His great high forehead with the dropping forelock.
Yeah.
And I looked and thought, wow. And then he turned round and he said, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'd just like to add my thanks to my propaganda minister, Dr. Göbbels."
So he knew you were going to be there.
Yes, he spoke very slowly like that.
Yeah.
There was no ranting. He didn't even chew the carpet.
Chew the carpet?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of people said when he got mad, he chewed the carpet. There's none of that. A reasonable, self-contained, very undistinguished looking little man.
Yeah.
And his suit I wouldn't have given to a charity show.
You're kidding?
I'm not
Untidy?
kidding. Shabby.
Really?
Untidy. He had a sort of high boots with riding breeches that overlapped them like +4s. I can remember it so vividly. I could almost see him as though he were in the room now. And you would never believe that that man, who from absolute nothing put the whole world in a tremble.
He certainly did.
And yet there he stood, no taller than I am, and I'm quite short. And nothing about him, yes, except his eyes.
Yeah.
And when you looked at him, there was something about his eyes, nothing mesmeric or made you be hypnotized or anything like that, but something about them. They were obviously the eyes of a man who, yes, was going to be a visionary. I think I could say that now. At the time I didn't, but I think that's what it was.
Well, he'd come a long way already. This was 1934,
yes.
And he had, from 0 in 1921 or whenever they started, in 13 years they'd come.
Yes,
he was the head of government.
Well, he
so
joined the party in
22.
See, the actual party was started in 1919.
Yeah.
And then, incidentally, as a matter of interest, he was the 55th member
All right.
of the Nazi Party. He came, yes, but at first he was a rabble-rouser, that's all. That was his great value, a rabble-rouser.
But in this little meeting in the Salon of the Propaganda Ministry, he was not rabble-rousing.
Oh, he was the Chancellor of Germany.
Yeah.
And very shortly to become the President and Chancellor.
Yes.
Because Hindenburg was about to die.
Oh, it was just before Hindenburg's death.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And with this little group, did he take the opportunity to give you a speech?
Yes, he just said just a few words that he appreciated the work we were doing for the fatherland.
Yeah.
And he hoped that whatever we wanted, we would ask for, and everything would be done to assist us. Then he just said to Dr. Göbbels, very nice to have these overseas helpers here. Yeah. Come and see me afterwards, please. And he walked out, just this little man.
A gentleman.
Oh, yes.
Not terribly well dressed.
No.
He wasn't imitating Charlie Chaplin or something.
Not a bit. No, not a bit. No. I said he was shabby and undistinguished, but you wouldn't laugh at him.
No.
There was something there, but you wouldn't laugh. But he was, I don't know, but for his moustache in a crowd, you wouldn't even look at him twice. But his moustache was a bit distinguished.
Now, let me ask you a question similar to the one I put 5 minutes ago. Supposing I had quietly whispered to you as Adolf Hitler was speaking to this little group, that in 8 years' time, or thereabouts, this man will give the order to liquidate, to exterminate 6 million Jewish men, women and children, systematically. Would you have believed me?
No, I wouldn't have believed you, although you must bear in mind that system of wiping people out had already begun.
On a very small scale?
Yeah, well, it was well on its way.
Really?
Oh yes, he'd got at least 3 concentration camps going by that time. Not he, but Himmler.
Yeah, under his orders.
Oh yes.
But these were not at that time extermination camps, I think. Isn't that right?
Not to the same, there were no gas chambers.
Right.
No, not that, but they were fierce. I think that nobody can conceive, and I saw Dachau after the war, nobody can conceive what it was like. It must have been so dreadful that, well, there just aren't any words to describe it. But no, I wouldn't have accepted
at that time, it
no.
would have been crazy for
At
me
that
to
time,
think that.
we were all wanting to do business with Germany.
Yeah,
It was
exactly
a very
right.
fine holiday country, and it suited us, and it suited the English people.
Yeah.
They liked it.
Yeah.
So we had no axe to grind in
Right.
that respect.
Now, he went out and the meeting in due course finished?
Yes, we had a drink of hock before we left.
Oh, that's hospitable.
But just before we were going, Dr. Göbbels said, Herr Johnson, will you just come into my office a moment? So I went in, and he said, now, during the time of talking about things, I told him how difficult it was to get around
Okay.
and how much we were blocked by red tape and so on, which he smiled at. And then he asked me to go in, and he said, look, your company does all the business really with the German people here. He said, now, I'm going to make it easier for you. He said, how would you like to be an honorary member of the party as a foreigner, outside foreign member of the party, in which case I will give you a party ticket which will enable you to go anywhere you like. I said, well, I shall be delighted. I was not only delighted, but honoured.
When you say party tickets, you're talking about a membership card in the National Socialist German Workers' Party,
yes,
right?
That's right. That's called a party ticket, yes, that's right. So he got one of these little cards out, a little card, and he signed it himself personally.
Wow.
And he said, now, wherever you want to go, just, if there's any difficulty, just show that.
How about that?
You're through.
Now, for our viewers, let me clarify this. You were not a Nazi at any time. You did not believe in any of that.
I've never, in the whole of my life, I've never been a political animal.
Right.
And I certainly wouldn't have been a Nazi.
So this was a means of getting about Germany more
I had
easily.
to have it.
Yeah, right.
It was a business proposition.
Okay.
Isn't
that fascinating?
There were several. So, of course, many of the business people who, in other businesses, they also carried this card.
Sure, I understand.
Because there was a lot of interference at that time.
Right. Now, after you left Berlin on that occasion, you had another time, I think, when you saw Hitler speaking, wasn't
Oh,
that right?
yes, at Mecklenburg.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, there were about, I suppose, 120,000 people there.
Yeah.
In a huge, great arena with all the flags and whatnot. And having this little card, I was able to get up into a rather privileged
oh my goodness.
rather privileged position.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever heard Hitler. I'd heard him on the radio, but to speak in the flesh. And when he started speaking quietly, very quietly, and talking about the party generally, and then suddenly he exploded. That's all you can say. A vocal explosion. The people that had tried to kill the fatherland. Those were his words. These are the enemies who tried to kill the fatherland. The Marxists, the Jews, the financiers who are making money out of our blood. And then he went on. I said, in about 10 minutes, there wasn't a sound from the crowd.
How big was this crowd?
About 100 to 120,000.
100,000? Oh my
Not
goodness.
a sound. Not a sound.
Yeah.
He held them spellbound for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I timed him.
Yeah. Did you see him using notes?
No. He probably had notes, but you couldn't see them.
Yeah.
He did get up to a terrific pitch.
Yeah, yeah.
And
this, of course, is the public figure that we have seen on film.
That's right.
Yeah.
He did not foam at the mouth.
No, right.
He did get up to a terrific pitch, and then suddenly he stopped.
Yeah.
And he just said, "We are going to win our way."
How about that?
Stopped it dead, as in a very quiet voice, from shouting like
Yep.
mad, very quiet voice. And then he never said Heil Hitler himself, he just put his hand up. And the crowd went mad.
Yep.
Went stark staring mad.
Yep.
You've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I went out and I thought, I remembered the time I'd seen him before. That little man, he filled the screen.
Yep.
He filled their world.
Yep.
This man was more than a rabble-rouser.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great orator.
Yeah.
Now, the words he said were nothing. I mean, he wasn't in the same class as Churchill as far as that was concerned, but the way he handled his words and handled he handled those people like as though it were a little instrument that he was very familiar with.
Now, the years went on, and as they say, the clouds of war gathered and so forth.
Yes.
And September 1939 came round. I understand you were in Germany in those few critical days,
Yes,
is that right?
well, I must go back a little way.
Okay.
In 1938, all the representatives told their home countries that war was inevitable. We all thought that.
Really?
We had, well, the preparations we'd seen and so on, we were very sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my own company said, right, we will, 1938, we'll carry the passengers, the usual holidays as usual, but we will make a plan for evacuation if the worst should happen.
All right.
So that was the sort of start of the thing. And then things went on until 1939. Now, in August of 1939, I was at my headquarters in Lucerne when the head of the company came through and said, "It's very serious outlook. We must get all our people back."
The tourists.
All the tourists back,
Yeah.
yes. Station. So I started off from there, went down the Rhine to Assmannshausen, and we had about, I think 40 odd people there. And I said to them, "Now look, when does your holiday finish?" And I was there at the beginning of the week, it was the end of the week. I said, "Well, right, now the end of the week, I'm going to put you on a train. Whether you're due to go back or not, you're to go on that train."
They probably agreed.
Oh yes, oh yes. No, not all of them.
Really?
Most of them realised that I was in deadly earnest
Yeah.
about this, but a lot said, "Oh, why should we? We've paid." I said, "No, please. This has got to be."
Yeah.
So I arranged the train for them. They'd get on the trains. So anyway, I thought, well, this is it. So I only had a very small overnight case with me, so I went up to the control, and I was stopped immediately. "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going through to the Swiss side. I'm travelling to Lucerne." Oh. Now just wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Two other chaps came up and they said, "You're going to Lucerne?" I said, "Yes, I have business to do there, a very special business which also has something to do with the fatherland."
Oh, which is true, of course.
Looks at me and they said, "You come with us." Small office. I looked and I thought, my God, they're Gestapo. They were. I said, "Oh, well, any difficulty?" They said, "Are you aware that war has been declared today?" I said, "Oh, let's pass off, there's nothing." "Oh." "Well, yes," I said, "perhaps you'd like to show me your passport." I said, "No, I wouldn't care to do that, but I will show you what I have." From Dr. Göbbels. "Oh." I said, "Now, Dr. Göbbels assured me that any time, under any circumstances, I can travel because I'm on business for the fatherland." I said, "And if you want to know what that business is, I suggest you ring up Dr. Göbbels straight away and ask him." I had to do this. I had to. It's the only way to approach Germans in that attitude.
Yeah.
Talked to one another. They said, "Oh, we better go and see the..." They had a Gruppenführer there. We better go and see the Gruppenführer, which is a sort of bit high up on the Gestapo line. He came in, it was a nasty bit of work he was, and he looked at this and he said, Well, Dr. Göbbels. I said, yes. I said, Reichsminister, Dr. Göbbels. Oh, yes. What are you going to do for the fatherland in Lucerne? I said, you're not asking me that, are you? He said, yes. I said, please ring Dr. Göbbels. Only he will tell you why I'm here.
Oh my goodness.
I had to do this. I was desperate and I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I was scared to my back teeth about it. He said, oh, right. He said, but wait a minute. He said, you're coming back, of course. I said, certainly. I'll only be away a couple of days. Fine, give me your pass. Out went my pass. Now, I was carrying at this time all the passes on the German railways, which I had given people in my company to go around. I was hoping to God they weren't going to search me, because those would have been again a dead giveaway.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, they didn't. He said, I'll keep that. Well, when you come back, you come and collect it from me. I said, fine. He said, you have some German money on you? I said, yes. He said, I'd like to give that to me. I give you a receipt, all your German money. He said, and that? He said, fine. Now, he said, come to my office. He said, don't bother about anybody else. Come to me. Come to the Gruppenführer's office, and you will have all your things back. Now, why he thought I was an Englishman going to come back to Germany, I cannot imagine. But that's as true as it stands. And it was only when I'd got out sweating, I hope to God they didn't see how I was sweating, into Basel, that is Swiss Basel, I was home and dry.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But I then realised why it had happened. They'd invaded Poland on the 1st of September. They were all at 6s and 7s about the frontiers.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do.
Only reason I got through.
Yeah. Well, a bit of brass face as well, I think.
Well, yes, I thought about that a lot afterwards.
Look, we're going to have to go. Our time is up.
Yep.
This is a totally fascinating story, and we certainly thank you for joining us.
It's been a very great pleasure, very great pleasure. And hope perhaps one day I might yet again return to the States and have a little chat there with you.
Come and stop by in our studio if you do.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Jim, that was a fascinating interview.
Yeah.
If a little man like the man who entered the room that was described by Mr. Johnson, if he appeared on the political stage today, how do you think he'd be accepted by the masses?
Oh, very well. He has all the qualities of a successful politician. He was gentlemanly, he was courteous, soft-spoken, highly talented, able to persuade people, visionary. These things came out from what Randall Johnson
It's
told us.
frightening, and it's something that our viewers should give some thought to, some deep thought.
The thought we want to bring out in this program is that he's not different from today's ordinary successful politician. We say a Nazi lurks in the heart of every politician. They all want to lord it over their fellow men. That's what they're in the business for.
Good. Now, today is Election Day, and next week, on our next edition of the Freedom Alternative, I will be speaking with Peter McNamara, chairman of the Libertarian Party of Connecticut. So join us, won't you, for another edition of the Freedom Alternative. Good night.
Good night.